Stars absolutely matter in recruiting. Everybody knows that. And I think one of the best ways that that's shown is in the blue chip ratio that comes out every summer. I'll put a link to that article in the show notes. So if you want to follow along with that, with this segment, there's a really good graphic there that basically just does a rundown of how many, or I guess what percentage of your team is made up of 4 stars or higher. So just give some background. In 2020, OU was at 63%. And then 66% in 2021. This year, they come in at 71%. They are 4th overall among all teams on the blue chip ratio. Alabama sitting up there at 89%. Insane. That basically is just special teams that are not 4 stars. That's a whole new level for blue chip ratio. Then you got Ohio State at 80%, Georgia at 77%, OU at 71%. And that's basically, it goes down to about 54% on the blue chip ratio. But from that group of teams, that's basically the most rock solid formula ranking style that you can put together that says, hey, these are the teams that can win a national championship this year. And OU's 4th on that list.
Anybody on here that surprises you guys, whether it's surprised they had that high percentage or with that high percentage, how poorly they've performed over the past few years?
Probably Oregon, honestly. Especially
kind of Miami too.
Yeah, Miami's good. Oregon kind of sticks out being out there in the Pac-12 with USC, UCLA being down over the last decade or so. Oregon having Chip Kelly, then having Mario Cristobal, and ultimately Dan Lanning taking things over in Eugene. You would expect that Oregon would have an opportunity to run the table in the Pac-12 over the next 1 to 2 years, especially before the 2 teams out in LA join the Big Ten Conference. But guys, I think the thing that kind of sticks out to me on this is, are we surprised that the general outlook from the overall national media on so many question marks and such low expectations on what this OU team in 2022 could be, when the odds say they've got the 4th most talented roster in college football across the board? So do you think that's fair, that the criticism is there from the national media?
I was absolutely kind of surprised by this. And I think it was highlighted by a thread that I saw on Sooner Scoop just maybe an hour or so ago. If you're not a Sooner Scoop subscriber, it's worth the money. Go check it out there. But just one of the posters on there just asked a basic poll question, was like, hey, what are your expectations for this year? Or what is your expectation of a successful year? And the vast majority of people, the answer was just win the Big 12. And I was like, that seems pretty low for OU standards. Like, yeah, there's a lot of transition this year, and the national media is not big on OU. It almost feels like OU fans have bought into some of the, hey, it's going to take a while. And I understand that when a new coach comes in, yeah, but this is not the usual change of coach to coach. Usually a coach gets fired, the team's in shambles, the recruits aren't there, but this blue chip ratio says that, hey, you have what should be the 4th most talented roster. Maybe they weren't developed great under Lincoln, but a lot of that changed at this point. You've got your strength coach in there. You've got your culture now. Your blue chip ratio is far higher than previous champions that have won the national championship. For example, Clemson, 52% in 2016. Clemson, 61% in 2018. LSU, 64% in 2019. So OU's well above that. And I don't think it should surprise us if OU wins a championship.
Has anybody been higher than the 89% from Bama this year?
I don't believe so. I think that's
not to my knowledge.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, there's definitely some outliers on this. I mean, you look at 2016 Clemson, half their roster being blue chip recruits. I mean, you can kind of hide that when you've got a player like Deshaun Watson, kind of a generational talent in college, when we want to talk about his career in the NFL and what he's going through right now. But when you just kind of go down the list and look at the national championships, I mean, LSU 2019, they're 7% less than Oklahoma is right now. And I think you could make the argument that that's the greatest college football team of all time. So the big word for me, recruiting does matter. Stars do matter. Absolutely. Across the board. There's a reason why Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma are at the end every single year with the chance to win a national championship. They get the best players, but when you get these kids on campus, doesn't matter if they are 3, 4, 5. Development is the key word. Development, your coaching staff, being able to train these guys, being able to get them to perform and fulfill their potential. That's when you're able to turn these guys from, hot shots out of high school, 4 and 5 star recruits, develop those guys into All-Americans, develop those guys into NFL draft picks, and that's what's going to make your roster even better across the board. But Adam, you kind of posed a question here towards the very end of this one, looking at this graphic. Would it be surprising to see OU go all the way, knowing that they have the 4th best blue chip ratio in terms of the teams? What do you guys think?
I don't think it should
Yes.
be. I
To
really
me, it
don't
is.
think it should be. I mean, you have the talent there. This statistic shows you that the talent is there to win a national championship. Maybe Dylan Gabriel's not Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson, but Clemson was far below that mark in the blue chip ratio. So I feel like there is enough pieces there. For me, the question is one off season enough time for the culture to take effect, which by all accounts, by what the players are saying, all across the board, from your leaders to, your backups, everybody seems to have bought into the culture. Now, we still need to see it in action, but is that enough time to instill culture? And then is also enough time for strength and conditioning to take effect? Because that was a big piece that this team got punched in the mouth by more physical teams throughout the Lincoln Riley era. So is one offseason enough, or do you need longer than that?
It's so much more than about talent, though. Yes, you could say Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU had the most talented rosters, but if we're going by talent alone, then Texas and Texas A&M should be in the playoff every single year, which clearly has not happened. So it's so much more than just talent. I think transition still plays a role. I think this OU team should win the Big 12 championship. I'd be very surprised if they're in the playoff. Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think that a Big 12 championship, that is, I mean, you disagree with that, Adam. I mean, national championship, that should be the standard each and every year. But I think that you kind of have to give a little bit of grace this season when you look at the roster turnover, when you look at a brand new coaching staff, at least on one side of the football. But guys, let's not forget, this team won 11 games last year. So the cupboard is not bare. Yes, we did lose, a few key guys, 2 quarterbacks, a few skill player guys in the transfer portal. But let's not forget, too, Dylan Gabriel is a more than sufficient enough talent quarterback to win the Big 12. I mean, go back all the way to the year 2000. Josh Heupel won a national championship. I think we would take Dylan Gabriel, his talent as a quarterback, over Josh Heupel, but I think that's where you bring in the other 95 guys, having that supporting cast, guys that are elevating their game, playing to a higher standard of football compared to what we've seen at a place like Oklahoma. Yes, we've had Baker, Kyler, Jalen. The quarterback play has been phenomenal at OU over the last 5 to 10 years, but when you look at those teams that we just mentioned above, from 2016 Clemson all the way to 2021 Georgia, you got to have a complete football team to win a national championship. And I think that the talent is definitely there in Norman this year for Oklahoma to reach the playoff if everybody stays healthy. They're able to take care of business at home, pull out a few close games on the road. But guys, Gabriel greater than Heupel. Schmitty being back, that's a massive upgrade compared to Benny Wiley. Venables and Ted Roof, that's a massive upgrade compared to Alex Grinch and the staff that he had in here in Norman. So I think all the pieces are there. It's just a matter of, can this team in the last 8 or 9 months since Venables took over, can they gel? Can they build this thing up to where it's a smooth transition? And you can hit the ground running once you kick off in 30-some days against UTEP.
I do think that, like, we look at the Lincoln Riley era, and one thing that he did well was he upgraded the talent. Like, he left the program at a 71% blue chip ratio. He didn't start that way. So in my mind, and you mentioned Texas and Texas A&M, like, yes, they have the talent, but they're not in the playoffs. They're not winning, conference championships even. Well, that's kind of the difference between OU. Is OU didn't necessarily have the talent that those programs did, but they had the culture, they had the infrastructure, they had the program.
Development.
Now it's like, okay, OU does have, the talent to match that, and the culture has way improved with Brent Venables coming in. It's just a matter of, like, is it all just things that are they robots, repeating their coach? And when they get on the road at Nebraska and they're down by 10 points in the second quarter, does it fall apart? Or is it instilled and, like, etched into their soul, so to speak? And it doesn't matter if you're down, just like that 2000 team, when they went on the road to Texas A&M and they were down late in the fourth quarter, like, they found a way to work through it because it was a team. It wasn't individuals collectively there together.
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, something I think is interesting, guys. 2 of the last 3 national champions transfer quarterbacks. And so it is more than just who you recruit. Recruiting is now expanded from the high school level now into the transfer portal, obviously. So that's something that, obviously we think OU am I going to take Dylan Gabriel over Caleb Williams? Probably not. But we still think OU came out in a good spot with Gabriel at quarterback. So I think that's another thing to take in consideration here. Just look at the history. It is possible, and not only possible, but more likely than not, the past 3 seasons, transfer quarterback and winning a championship here. So something else to kind of just be optimistic about.
Stetson Bennett won a national championship last year. I think
that's an exception, though, man. That's one of the greatest defenses of all time.
And that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
If you've got the talent around the quarterback, and especially on the defense playing at a high level, you don't have to have all-world quarterback play like we've seen from Kyler or Bryce Young or Baker, Deshaun, all those guys. Adam, I do kind of want to press you on this and get your thoughts on it. You mentioned that a successful year at Oklahoma this season can only be defined by winning a Big 12 championship and more. That's the bar that you're setting it at? Is a 9-3 season not winning the Big 12 championship in Venable's first year? Is that considered a bad season for Oklahoma?
For me, absolutely. My standard is you're not rolling the ball out onto the field unless you expect to win the national championship. Like this is Oklahoma.
But,
so I have a really high standard for that, and that's why I view the past 20 plus seasons as failures, because we did not win the national championship. Yes, you come into some years knowing, hey, we got a new quarterback, we're reloading, whatever, and it might not be realistic, but my standard is the same. And that's how Bama operates. That's how Ohio State operates. Oklahoma should be no different. Now, the fact that we haven't won a national championship, I think, in the last 20 years, I think has taken some OU fans down a step to where, like, I guess for me, I don't want to lower my standards just because we haven't done it recently. I don't want to lower my standards and then it becomes, oh, well, I hope we just, win 10 games. And then, now I just hope we become bowl eligible, so to speak. Like, that's a slippery slope in my mind. And I know that, like, as a fan, my standards and expectations don't really have a huge impact on the program, but that's where I stand. Like, we're here for excellence. Best is the standard.